Aussie supermodel Miranda Kerr, who was slapped with an official warning.
Strict home isolation at a private property.
Australia's strict hotel quarantine policy doesn't necessarily apply to everyone.
He and his family have been given permission to skip hotel quarantine.
Hollywood star Matt Damon will serve quarantine at a private property in the north of the state, not a hotel.
Film star Matt Damon has been allowed to quarantine at a private residence before filming his next movie. Supermodel Miranda Kerr was granted the same privilege but landed in hot water.
It's been revealed Miranda Kerr was issued a warning for breaking part of her strict 14-day isolation order when returning to Australia last year.
Some have labelled such exemptions a double standard when other international arrivals face 14 days isolated in a hotel room.
You know, there shouldn't be two sets of rules. There should be a standard which anyone can access.
State authorities around the country have the ability to grant exemptions on a case-by-case basis. Back in September, Queensland's Chief Health Officer gave this public explanation after allowing Tom Hanks to cross the state's closed border.
I've given exemptions for people in entertainment and film because that's bringing a lot of money into this state.
Each state and territory has its own discretion about providing you with an exemption. Basically, you are exempt on health and compassionate grounds, and that you do not pose a public health threat to the community.
The exemptions that are provided seem to be a bit of a black box to us. We don't get a lot of information around a set of criteria that are applied, and it's a bit of a judgment call.
The Australian Medical Association's WA President Dr Andrew Miller believes more people should be granted exemptions to quarantine in facilities other than city hotels, which he believes do not offer adequate ventilation.
Well, there's clearly one rule for the rich and one rule for the poor. It shouldn't matter whether you're Matt Damon or whether you're Joe Bloggs or Jane Bloggs. You should have an opportunity to quarantine somewhere that's suitable for you.
Since last March, everyone entering Australia has had to spend 14 days in a designated state-run quarantine hotel. But there are some exceptions. Pilots and cabin crew who live in Australia can quarantine at home, as can DFAT staff, foreign diplomats, government officials, offshore oil and gas workers, and anyone from New Zealand. People can also be granted exemptions on medical, compassionate or other grounds. Where it gets controversial are the exemptions for high-profile celebrities and business leaders.
I can't understand how the general community and the Australian general community that's highly egalitarian will think that this is okay. It's just totally unacceptable from optics, but also from infection control.
Epidemiologist Professor Mary Louise McLaws says celebrities pose the same COVID risk as other international arrivals.
The most important risk is behaviour and compliance by the celebrity, and secondly, the risk to the staff that they're employing who may not have had a high-level training of how to keep themselves risk-free so that they don't place a risk to the general community.
In response to questions from 7:30, the Federal Health Minister said quarantine exemptions are a matter for states and territories. New South Wales and Queensland authorities said exemptions are only granted if the alternative meets the same standards as quarantine hotels. Last year, singer Dannii Minogue and her son were given permission to forgo hotel quarantine and spend their 14 days at a Gold Coast property.
You can't have one rule for celebrities and a different rule for everyday Australians. And we've seen that up here in Queensland with the Labor government giving exemptions to people like Dannii Minogue and Tim Zhu.
In a statement, Queensland Health said it had since tightened requirements due to rising case numbers globally and the new emerging strains of COVID-19.
I suppose as far as the medical profession is concerned, every patient's a celebrity. Everyone should get the same chance as Matt Damon to quarantine somewhere safe for them, that's comfortable for them, where they have access to fresh air and where they want to be.